Chapter 7. After Becky's call, Charles felt a strange longing to free himself from the web he had found himself in. He had never been to church for as long as he could remember, but he knew he would need a greater power to help him out. Even though he was aware of the danger of seeking God's power, he would lose everything he had ever had. The more he tried to resist the urge, the more he felt like leaving everything and going to the church that had changed Becky so much. What will happen afterwards, because he cannot work for an organization that would require him to sell his soul for monetary value, though he knew that whatever happened, death is still the end of it all. He had been to the police station to be interrogated about the murder of Maggie, and from the look of things they're looking for a fall guy. The investigating officer was interrogating him as though he had a personal vendetta against him. It was when he told him about the love affairs between them that he knew that he had entered deep into a circle that would require a greater power to help him out, and if there is any other power which definitely would not be the legal system, then it must be God. The investigating officer pulled out a picture of him kissing Maggie, then said, "Can you see a clear motive for murder? You killed Maggie when you discovered she was going back to her ex-husband," he said, looking into his eyes. "What do you mean? I don't know anything about what you are saying," Charles had said, getting up from his chair. "Well, take it from me that you killed Maggie, and if you need help, then go right back and submit to your boss to do whatever he tells you. If not, we already have witnesses that will testify to your involvement in murder. You can't do this to me," Charles said as he could see his life going down the drain gradually. First it was blackmail regarding his sleeping with Maggie, and then a murder rap against him. "Have a good day, Mr. Bain," he said, and opened the door for him. "You can't prove this," Charles said as he walked through the corridor filled with uniformed men and women, and suddenly the respect he once had for them was exchanged for hatred. How could they make things up that are not true? He had watched so many movies and knew what people could do to pin a crime on an innocent person. He thought on his way and even in the office, but could not think of any way out. Then Becky's call came through. He was surprised when the police officer asked him for his phone before talking to him, and he was searched thoroughly, switched off his phone, and kept it until after the interrogation. Then it hit him that he actually was in big trouble, and whatever John is involved in is far bigger than what he could comprehend. Charles got into his car and went straight to the church. He had used Google Maps to locate the church before he took off from the office, God's Glory Church. The church was just a few yards to Katrina's school. He had passed through that road often but never took notice of the church. The car park was full, so he had to park by the roadside outside the church gate. Many others had packed there, and he went into the church. They were on the last hymn when he entered, and the atmosphere in the church was just so comforting that he felt it would be better to remain there afterwards. The people were all smiling with welcome on their faces, even though they had never met him. He was able to get a space at the back of the church on the last pew. Charles was grateful he came early enough to get a place to seat. As the pastor began to narrate his experience, Charles knew God ordained him to be in the church to hear what the pastor had to say. He could not at a point wait for the call to repentance, as he sat crying his heart out all through. The people sitting with him noticed he was in tears all through and must have wondered what kind of sin he must have committed. Charles could see what the pastor was narrating practically happening to him, and the only one to help him was God, whom the pastor left his body to meet. At the end of the service, Charles was unaware of anything happening around him as he cried his heart out before God and on his knees asking God's forgiveness. He was lost in his prayer that he did not know when the whole crowd had dispersed, leaving a few others still talking with the pastor. When he got up, he saw Becky sitting just a few chairs away from him, and he could see joy unspeakable in her eyes as she came into his embrace. "Pastor David, meet my husband Charles Bain," she said as she turned to the pastor. Pastor David stretched his hands towards him with a smile and said, "You didn't tell me he was coming. Anyway, you are welcome, Mr. Bain." "Call me Charles, sir," he said as Katrina also ran to his embrace. "You have got a great woman, Charles," he said, looking at Becky. "Thank you, Pastor. Just that I have not been fair to her," he said as tears welled up in his eyes. "That is the work of the devil. We were all like that. Don't beat yourself too hard, the pastor said as he called his wife to meet him. Honey, meet Becky's husband, Charles. Rose extended her hands and said, I am Rose. Pleased to meet you. You have got a wonderful family. Katrina never had enough of Cynthia, our daughter. Thank you, Mom. He managed to say, wishing he could talk with the pastor alone. Pastor, I would like to meet you alone if you don't mind, he said, wondering if he could survive another night before getting a prayer and counsel from the man who saw God face to face. Oh, sure, he said, leading him to his office. Charles turned to his wife and told her not to wait, he would meet her at home.